Well, hello everybody and welcome to the webinar. Today we start the fourth week of our Life After AEP webinar series. We're happy to have you here and glad you joined us. We've got a really great sort of learning platform for you to participate in, and hopefully you've been spending some time with us on Wednesday and Thursday afternoons because we've been sharing quite a bit of really valuable information, and we've been getting some great feedback. So I wanted to ask some of you to participate in a quick, an opportunity to get some feedback. And if you'll notice when you logged into the webinar that there is a chat window where you can actually type in either a question or a comment. So I'd like to try and get some feedback. If you've been on some of our webinars before during this Life After AEP webinar series, would you kindly type in to that chat window that you've been with us and what webinar you had attended. Also, if you could give us some feedback as to how we're doing. We want to make sure that we're always bringing you our business partners additional value, and so when we spend time to put together events like this, we want to know that we're doing something that is valuable to you. If you could kindly just take a minute of your time and sort of enter in some sort of feedback for us, that would be really, really appreciated. Today we've got a really awesome event. We've got a great product to share with you. We've got LifeShield in the house with us, and they're going to share their Survivor product. We are joined today by Steve Hague, who is the director of LifeShield sales, and his team, and they're going to present to us what I feel is a extremely valuable product that has been incredibly strong over the last year. We have grown our production probably tenfold over the previous year. So we are really, really excited about the growth that's happened this year with LifeShield, and we are looking forward to a lot more. So we're glad you joined us, and without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce Steve Hague, again, the director of LifeShield, and have him share with us the details about their great product.
Thank you, David. I appreciate that very much. And LifeShield, on behalf of LifeShield, I actually certainly appreciate your efforts in putting this together and the relationship we've had with AmeriLife over the years and the building of our personal relationship between the companies, and look forward to 2018 being a great year. Just a couple opening comments, forgive me, that I think are important. I have with me today in the room David Brooks. David is the president of LifeShield and is also a member of the board of directors. And I have with us also Heather Reeves, who is the compliance officer. So she has done a marvelous job and works with the agents and the agencies with respect to compliance. Compliance sometimes to those of us who have grown up as agents is a frightening word. But in the case of Heather, I think you will find that her efforts are to help us ensure sales and not be a production preventer. But she's been doing this for a while, and it is very, very helpful to us. I thought just from a perspective of a presentation, I'd like to ask David, for those of you who are not familiar with LifeShield, to give us a little brief background about LifeShield, and then we'd like to go into the product, discuss some of the issues that and opportunities that I think that the Survivor provides to you, because it is something that we have been successful with. Sales are growing. People are making a lot of good income from selling our product, and we want to talk to you about some of those issues. So let me introduce to you David Brooks, who is the president and also serves with me on the board of directors of the company. So David, let's talk about a little bit about LifeShield.
Hey, Steve, thank you very much. And David, just a moment before you jump in, I also want to introduce Robert Patterson, who's joining us from the field today. We're going to interview him a little later in the presentation. He's going to share with us some insight as to how he's working with the product and some of the things he finds valuable about the LifeShield relationship he has. And so stick around for that. That should be exciting. Also, we do have a really exciting promotion that LifeShield has actually jumped in and ponied up about $1,500 for you guys who are out there getting ready to go out and make your first sale. And they really want to promote the opportunity for you guys to just have a little bit more incentive to go out and give LifeShield a shot with a case. So they have graciously donated about $1,500 into a pot for you guys. I'll tell you more about how that works at the end of the webinar. But Dave, are you there? Yeah, thanks so much for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing all about the LifeShield products. So take it over from here.
Well, I appreciate it, David and Steve. Thank you, and to all the agents that are participating, I really appreciate your time. It's important that we have the ability to get in front of you, because without you guys selling our products, we're not here. As a third-generation insurance agent myself, I do really appreciate your efforts and time today to learn our product. And Steve's going to go over that. I think there are some unique details that can really help you in situations to sell. But a little bit about LifeShield. We are a life and health insurance provider, part of the Midland Group. LifeShield has been around since about 1982, $75 million in assets, about $25 million in capital and surplus. Been doing this for a long number of years. We have life and AD&D, critical illness. We've got, we count AmeriLife as one of our most trusted and important business partners. We're excited to be able to bring this opportunity to you. We've got licensed in about 43 states with production and underwriting offices, Oklahoma City and New Jersey. And again, just really excited to be here today, and look forward to earning your business.
Thank you very much, David. Let's go through just David Paul, and I apologize, David's. I'll try to distinguish between the two when I'm talking about them. But in the case of our relationship with AmeriLife, we on the life insurance side of the business are not out seeking IMOs all around the country. We have had a relationship with AmeriLife. My personal relationship with AmeriLife goes back to 1976, and LifeShield has and is quite happy with the training and the expertise and the management that exists within AmeriLife, their commitment to production, their commitment to quality. And so, you know, we're trying to build out this life insurance opportunity, and they are a primary, if not one of the, if not the most significant organization we're working with the sales. So talking just ever so briefly about the survivor as a policy, I know you have up on the screen a little fellow we call Sparky, and we'll move along with him here ever so briefly. But I want the folks, ladies and gentlemen, who are sitting here in the audience today to understand that you are our customer. The agent is our customer. Many companies talk about, and we certainly respect the policyholder and the applicant, but our customer really is you, and the purpose of our commitment to the product is to help you become financially successful. So we kind of looked around and talked about, and David and Heather and others within the company looked at what type of opportunity could we provide something that gives you a bit of an edge with regard to your ability to sell. And the thing that we created, in the sense that was a marketing technique that has that is the survivor. We all know that Social Security is an issue that most senior citizens understand, and we also know that in many cases, many AmeriLife agents do in fact sell Medicare Supplement, and we know that that is a Medicare Supplement, and that policy supplements what? Well, it supplements Medicare, right? So the concept of the sale of the survivor, it is a Social Security supplement product, because I think that we all generally know the story of what happens to a husband and wife in the event of the death or demise of one of the two of them. That what happens, and I don't know, David, whether we have folks who can respond verbally to this, so I'm answering my own questions, so I apologize for that part, but we know that they lose the survivor gets the higher of the two Social Securities remaining. And when that happens, that husband and wife generally will lose approximately 40% of their income. So what we wanted to do was create a product, actually use a product, an ordinary life insurance policy that we put together and set up so that when we were making a sales presentation, we can create the need and show the lack of income that's going to occur, and then very simply ask them how much money they would like to have and for how long would they like to have it. In other words, if they would like to have $500 a month as a readjustment period for 5 years, we easily calculate that, and it shows the premium on our little phone calculator that we'll be talking about shortly. But so we came with a concept of trying to make it more realistic for those of us who sell for a living, especially if we have a customer base, to be able to go back to them and talk about something other than, for example, life insurance in the sense of going back and talking about a death per se. We thought it was easier to sell cash, which we'll talk about. But in any event, so that's kind of the background of where we created the idea and the concept. Social Security story is one, as I say, that we have sales material available which tells that story. And then the other part that we were committed to, and David and the company has worked very hard at, is generally speaking, if we look into the Medicare field and the sale of Medicare policies, we find that we are more attracted to those policies that offer a lower premium than those that offer a higher premium to new applicants. I make that mention because you will look, and if you compare the rates that are available on the Survivor, you will find that generally speaking, the rates that the Survivor has being offered to you through AmeriLife actually is probably the least expensive, if you will, if that's an expense, but the lowest premium that you may have in your kit. So we found that to be important. And then we said to ourselves, well, beyond that, in the overaged market, one of the classic questions that we should all ask when we're making a sales interview and we're talking to a husband and wife, if that's the case, and they've agreed that they need to have protection, they need to supplement their Social Security, we really, as a good agent, should say, well, I'm glad to hear that you like that, but which one of you is going to die first? And of course, that becomes a very difficult question. So uniquely, we have a joint product that you can insure both the husband and the wife for approximately, for approximately that joint life coverage will be less than 90% of the coverages you insure on an individual life. And so you give them both the coverage they need, and then the policy actually functions when one of them passes away, and the Survivor, its namesake, then moves along. So those are some of the points that we felt very strongly about with regard to the sale. We're going to get here to the slide presentation in just a second, but I want to add a couple of real quick thoughts. One of the things that we found was the ability and the need for an insurance company, specifically in the case of LifeShield. We wanted to create an application that was attractive to you. We wanted to create an application because we have enough confidence in AmeriLife and David Paul and the AmeriLife management and the sales managers that we know the kind of training they provide for their agents. So we are actually entrusting the agent, if you will. We are passing, as David Brooks would say to you, passing the pen to you. You have now become a field underwriter for us because we have a very simple application set up of a yes and no application, which we'll go over here shortly during our time. And it is set up in order for you to be the eyes and the ears of the company and record the answers from the applicant. And once that is done and executed, we do not make a follow-up call behind it, with a couple of exceptions, which I will be happy to go through. But you will know at the time that you leave the house whether or not you have made a sale and whether that sale would be a level benefit or a graded death benefit. And we'll discuss more about some of the opportunities with that. So I put that out there to give you a little bit of a background of where we are. And now we can start going through the slide presentation. And I would ask this question, David Paul, of you. If we have folks who are in attendance here, do they have the opportunity to ask questions? Or they do that by noting, or how would that happen? Do we know how that happens?
Yeah, great question, Steve. So what we're going to do is we're going to save the questions for the end of the presentation, but go ahead and enter them in as you experience them. So if you have a question pop up in your head, go ahead and type it into the chat window while you're thinking of it. That way you don't forget about it, and we'll be sure to cover all the questions that pop up at the end of the webinar. So
okay, thank you very much, David. I appreciate that. I'm sure that'll be helpful to everyone out there. So let's just start through with our first slide. And And you will see that some of these things, in fact, tie back to my opening comments with regard to what the product does. Of course, we're talking about the client's income. That is relating to Social Security. You can customize that by the fact that you are allowing them to choose the amount of money that they might like to have on a readjustment period, whether that is $500 a month for 5 years or $250 a month for 3 years. The quoting app that we will discuss a little later provides you with all of the information with regard to the smoking, non-smoking, male, female, and joint life rates right on the screen on your telephone or on your laptop or computer. Additionally, as I had pointed out earlier, we have a single or joint income replacement options, which is the joint life product. I think now that perhaps another company or two have brought out at least joint income, which is a great idea in this market, but heretofore we had been the only company in the senior market that offered a joint income policy. In that regard, I did want to make just one quick aside. There are 1,700 or so life insurance companies in the United States, and any of the companies that you have available to you from AmeriLife are all fine companies. They all serve a purpose. They have differentiating things with respect to their policies and some benefits here and there, but certainly any of those policies you can sell for AmeriLife and for those applicants, we certainly endorse, because we certainly know that the survivor doesn't fit everyone, and we look forward to you having the opportunity to be able to make those decisions. Additionally, we said that the huge savings for insuring 2 lives, that being the joint life product we had discussed earlier, the survivor death benefits we point out are flexible. We had said earlier that you can pick the number of months and you can pick the monthly amount. Well, that is, from a marketing sales standpoint, a great opportunity for you to make that style of a presentation. But the reality is, this is an ordinary life insurance policy. It has a lump sum payments are an option. I mean, you can split it. The beneficiary certainly can, in fact, make choices that they can make in any standard insurance policy. There is no requirement that it be a monthly income or used in that fashion. So it's like any ordinary life insurance policy. We happen to take the policy itself and feature these 2 things as an opportunity for you to have something different to discuss. So you have lump sum payments. Yes,
Steve, if I may interject, one of the things I have noticed about this product that makes it, I think, maybe uniquely marketable is the flexibility there, where you can actually, have a discussion related to something other than the death benefit, which is the typical approach for a final expense sale. And it gives some uniqueness to the conversation, which doesn't necessarily have to go into a very difficult conversation. And I think just from the standpoint of sitting down at the table and asking, tell me, is the loss of Social Security income from one of you going to affect the way that your household is run? And will the budget support the loss of that income? And I think, that kind of question maybe is a little different approach, and might have a little better or maybe a softer approach to the discussion of, have they thought about those, those moments?
Oh, absolutely, David, and that's an excellent point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. That's it very much gets back to the category of the fact that the agent is our customer. So what has been designed in this presentation and in this concept of selling is exactly what you were just alluding to there. So that's a very, very good point. Now, the other part of it, unless, and I'm not trying to be a CLU in this statement, I don't know how many CLUs we have on the phone, but the whole idea is that you can, in fact, do whatever you like with the money. I mean, unless it is precluded by the insured, and if it hasn't been precluded by the insured, the person who passed away, I mean, you can use this for final expenses. You can use half of it for something and half of it for final expense. There is no predetermination. So it does, as you said, David Paul, provides you with a great deal of flexibility. And I think that generally gives the agent a lot more leverage in the sales process. So,
I think that's a real key feature that I want to make sure we stress, is that flexibility. And I think, as we go throughout the presentation, our agents on the call will certainly see that, And it's important to keep that in the back of your mind. That flexibility provides you an opportunity as a salesperson to kind of, travel down a road that, doesn't necessarily have to have a dead end. And sometimes you get in those positions where, you're in a discussion and that discussion leads to a dead end. With this product, you then have an opportunity to maybe pivot in a way that, again, that flexibility can give you a little more, options, if you will.
Yes, I assume you didn't use dead end. There was no pun intended there, was there?
Poor choice of words.
I was just saying that to get a smile out of Heather. But in any event, we're moving along to the next page, talking about some more of the stuff. We kick that over here. So we have a smartphone quote application. Today it's available on Android. It's coming soon to the Apple Store. And actually, I'm going to ask Heather to kind of address that. Where would the folks who are listening here be able to get the information if they are currently an Android user or the information we're talking about?
The instructions to download the app are currently located on our LifeShield insurance agent portal. And once you sign in to your account, you can go to Forms, and then you can go to Survivor, and the app download instructions are there. Click on those, and it'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to download the app.
The Apple Store coming for the Apple phone, and I assume will be in fairly soon.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, well, good. That's great. Okay, so let me tell you what that screen does. It has an age. It asks for the age, and it asks for the amount of monthly income that you would like to have. And then you put in, or actually just push it, and it gives you all the premiums. It gives you the male, female, smoking, non-smoking, and joint life premiums right on your screen. It shows them the annual mode and the monthly mode. So it's right there on your screen. One of the things I know David Paul remarked one time we were having lunch together in Clearwater was that sometimes simple things are easier to handle. This is not a very complicated product. The essence of the sales presentation from a Social Security perspective is, if one of you passes away, you're going to lose 40% of your income. How much you're going to need to readjust, as David Paul said just a moment ago. You can put that name and age and the amount you want in your telephone, push the screen, and it gives you the answers of not only the face amount, but the premiums applicable to that. So, it's a very simple opportunity to make your sales presentation. So moving down then from the quote on the app phone, or is the next point. We just actually addressed that, called easy quoting, and that's as a result of the phone and the application. Now, the ease of the application, the simplified issue, and the yes and no questions, we're going to slide over briefly to the, get Heather to do that for me, over to the A and B part of our application. What we have there, and certainly offline or later or through David, we can talk in some detail about these questions, but let me tell you what is built into this application. Many of us who have sold in the senior market have what we call knockout questions. Those knockout questions usually are 5 or 6, and within those 5 or 6 questions, they have 18 or 19 or 20 problems. I say that in jest, but there's really a lot more questions than that within those 5 and 6 that are considered to be knockout questions. What we have here in Section A is we have elongated those 5 knockout questions, made them very simple and direct, and you have either had the problem or the issue, or you don't have the problem and the issue. So it's a yes and no response from the applicant. And the reason you have the 2 columns, of course, is for a joint for the applicant 1 or applicant 2. So in Section A of this application, when one makes it, this becomes a great sales tool for each of us. And I just briefly want to address that because I mentioned earlier that you have 4 or 5 products in your kit. And, sometimes a very frustrating thing when we have gone out and we've chased the lead down and we're 75 miles from home and we get into a sales presentation and we do a very nice presentation. They're very excited, but then we find out they don't qualify. So that sometimes makes it very difficult for us. We are having success, and I think David Paul would back this up. We are having success with folks who are showing the survivor as they get down to talking about qualifying for a life product. They use this application to begin with, because this application, if in the first 17 questions, you know, you probably got the lowest premium, you'd probably like to sell the survivor, but if in these first 17 questions you get a yes, someone responds yes to the questions listed there in those 17, they do not qualify. We will not entertain nor issue a policy to them if we have a yes in those first 17 questions. So at that point, I think we would all say to ourselves, that's a good guide, because I now know what the malady or problem is with this person, and I can reach over here and find company A who may have a guaranteed issue, or company B that has this or that, and then I can move toward completing a sale, and I've already pre-qualified them. So that really generally will help us as we go along, because that prevents the need from having the frustration of not having a qualified prospect. So that's part A of the application. And if we go through part A of the application and we have all no's to part A, we then proceed to the 6 questions in part B. In part B, there are 6 questions again, which are yes and no questions. We read those questions, and if we have all of those answered no, then the policy will be issued as a level benefit policy, day 1 coverage, if all of the answers are no. However, if one of those questions, or actually all 6 of those questions, would generate a yes from the applicant, the policy will then become a graded death benefit policy. The graded death benefit policy is 2 years at 110% of the premium, and then full face 3rd year thereafter. But the 6 questions in part B, if they're all no, it will be a level benefit policy from day 1. If there is 1 yes or 6 yeses or even a blank, it's going to be issued as a graded death benefit. Now, unfortunately, we can't see you all today because our video portion isn't working, but I see a lot of smiles out there because, wow, there's not going to be a call behind it. There's not going to be this or that. Well, that's not exactly correct, and let me clarify exactly how this works. When the application comes in, we go and order an MIB, Medical Inspection Bureau, and one knows, as I'm sure you do in the life business, what that is, and that is merely reporting to us as the insurance company the background of the applicant with respect to their medical conditions. And so if that pops up and there is something that is contrary to the application, contrary to the no's that were in Section A, or contrary to the no's that were in Section B, we will follow up on the applicant with regard to that question. We will call and only ask them in the event that we have information that leads us to believe this may be, and we give them the opportunity to clarify that if that is in fact the case. In addition to that, we send to each applicant an MIV as in Victor letter that comes out from Mr. Brooks's office that goes out to each applicant, which has a self-addressed return envelope in that, and a letter from him, and that asks them to review the application to see if any of the answers that they supplied had inadvertently been recorded incorrectly, and or they had forgotten and perhaps they had another issue with that. So that really is, as I said to David Paul earlier today in a conversation, we certainly support the agent, and as many of us know, quite often if issues ever arise, and I'm reaching over now to cover up the compliance officer's ears, but if issues ever arise in the policy with respect to application information, we now have clearly given the applicant 2 opportunities to affirm the information that they in fact sent to the company. They did it on the application. They received a copy of the application, once again executed by them, with a letter from David asking them to review it, and if there's any corrections, to please make those corrections and stick it into a self-addressed envelope and return that to the company. Now, if they return that and it was all no's and we found there should have been a yes in Section A, the policy will be rescinded. If there's all no's in Section B and there was one yes or something different than was represented, then we will in fact issue the graded death benefit policy to them. So that kind of is how the application, what we tried to do. This may make little sense to you, but at least we believe it to be true. Many insurance companies go into too many things. For example, pharmaceuticals, we don't ask the drugs. You no longer have to record the drugs that they take. I know in many cases I've seen so many pill bottles that, you know, I kind of said if they didn't pronounce it, they couldn't have taken it. But the point is that you don't record that anymore. You don't have to record that anymore. We are, however, asking for and think because of the confidence we have in the agent to record the doctors, which is on the application, and where they are and the information that we have with respect to them. So that's something we do ask. You know, quite often we get applications that says Dr. Smith in Pittsburgh, which becomes very difficult for us because there's a lot of Dr. Smiths in Pittsburgh. So we try to be more as much specific information with regard to that as we can. So that's the question. Quick review. All no's in Section A. Section B will be level benefit. If you have all no's in Section 1, proceed to Section A, and go to Section B, and one's a yes, it'll be graded death benefit. So it's a very easy, simple application. This has changed our issue rate on policies. We were rejecting about 30% of applications before this and making calls on all applicants. But David has kept the company set down the direction where we are using you as a field underwriter. We now have like what would you say, David, a 9%?
Yeah, we're accepting 90 to 93%.
Instead of about 70, we now issue 90 to 93% of the policies. So I think that's a great plus, and it's a great plus for agents. So Heather, we can go back if you would. And the next one. Thinking. I see. Okay. Okay. The issue agents are pointing out there. Oops. Sorry about that.
No, for it. So sorry.
It's 45 to 80 are the issue ages. The face amounts $3,500 to $30,000 amount at risk. Okay. I had mentioned earlier the graded death benefit product, which is there at 110% of premiums for the first and second year, and then full face thereafter. And one of the unique things that we have offered through the efforts of David and LifeShield is that, as we all know, that if we have a situation that we have submitted for a standard issue policy and it turns out there has to be a graded death benefit or a modified death benefit, we generally have to go back to the house and we have to do two things. Number one, we have to ask for additional money because it cannot be issued as applied for. And number two, we take a reduction in our commissions. Those two things can be a little frustrating and sometimes make it difficult to salt the sale in, because now you're asking me for more money and I don't really have it as the applicant, and I realize that I've made the trip back out to the house and my commission is going to be reduced. Well, with the Survivor product, as we have it structured now with this application, you are not in that situation. You receive the same commission on either the level benefit or the modified benefit policy, and the premium structure for the level benefit or the modified benefit policy does not change. So you and I think probably we're unique in the industry with that. So we then, and I make this point to you as part of our trust in AmeriLife, and I say confidence, trust is a bad word in that respect, our confidence in the training of AmeriLife people and what they're trying to get done. You now are our field underwriter. You've taken the information, you've recorded it appropriately, you submitted it to us. You know that you have a sale when you leave the house, assuming the applicant has made the proper responses. And if there's to be a modification because it had to be graded death benefit due to their health versus level benefit, you're going to get the same compensation. And I think that that is a very unique proposition that we're offering. So
that is a very unique proposition.
we have 10-year renewal or trailing commissions, and that's fallen in most of the carriers that have. Generally, they're about 7 or so, and I think that there's a few years longer with ours. You know, one of the other things here, again, this is back more to somewhat degree of the philosophy, but selling loss of income, in my opinion, is easier than selling death. And we say this not because there's any problem with any one of us who sells to provide final expenses or those sort of things. Those are certainly things people that need to do, but sometimes, as David Paul said earlier, yeah, it's a little tough sometimes. Here again, you are our customer. We're trying to create an environment where it is much easier for you to have a reason to call back on somebody to talk about something that they are concerned about today. Certainly they are about death, but certainly the idea of running out of money and adjustment periods after that. So it's your opportunity to get back in the house once as we've said, and won't go on to it very hard, but once the policy has been applied for and issued, what they want to do with the proceeds in the event of someone passing away clearly is up to them. So what do you got?
That's one of the great options that you've got. You can either take the lump sum upon death, or you can structure some sort of income that would help to make an adjustment in the lifestyle of the beneficiary to support the change in lifestyle, having lost the income. So I really, really like the opportunity of being able to kind of sell it that way and have a conversation that way, and then just leave it up to the beneficiary once that time comes.
No, absolutely. And in fact, you can split it. You could take half the expense for final expenses, and you could take part as annuity, or you could leave part of it with the church. Anything you want to do with that is certainly within the opportunity of the beneficiary, with the one caveat, unless the insured has stipulated otherwise, that you're not entitled to that. But that happens so seldom. That's not even really much to consider, but say that for the sake of transparency. The market beating rates, of course, I think you're going to find our premiums are extremely competitive. We have not, and I will say to you in all good faith, that we have not had the success in the joint life that we would like to have had. We'd like to see that increase, and I think if you study it a little bit, you will see you'll be doing quite a service to the applicant, because what you do in reality is increase your persistency. Because somebody comes in and says, oh, well, I can do this or I can do that, but what can you do for Tom, or what can you do for Alice? So protecting it from replacement is a very important issue, and I think that will help preserve renewals, and it is good for everyone. So, okay.
One thing to bear in mind is, one thing to bear in mind as producers out in the field, and just in general as a life insurance agent, or an agent of any kind for that matter, there's always a tertiary responsibility that an agent has to consider when writing business or working with the client in the field, and that relationship includes the carrier themselves and their client. So if all things work for all three involved, you've got yourself a successful sale. And it's only when it doesn't work for one of the three involved that there's any challenge whatsoever with regards to the product being the right fit. So always take into consideration. It's a good tip for maybe some newer agents or agents that just really haven't looked at it as such, but it's really important to understand that tertiary responsibility that an agent has out there in the field, especially when they are in a position of doing some field underwriting.
This is kind of a little summary page of the things we hopefully have discussed today. It's some fast facts. And before we run down through those, I was reminded of a comment that David Paul just made with respect to understanding that when we receive this application, we do the MIB, it'll get out, assuming everything's signed and appropriately answers are made. We do not wait for the MIV letter to come back or not come back. We do, however, provide the MIB we do upon inspection. And so as a result of that, the policy gets out very quickly. And also as a result of that, your commissions get paid, I think, very quickly. So that's very important for us. So the survivor facts that are up on the screen now, and to just kind of remind you if it prompts any additional questions, it is, of course, a permanent whole life insurance policy. We have the level premiums. We have a level and graded death benefits, as we discussed with you, Parts A, Part B of the application, and how that affects what happens there. The concept of the sale, which, we're all in the business of concepts and selling. So it's to replace the loss of Social Security income when we lose a spouse. I know I go over that and mention that over and over, but that certainly is something that people do, in fact, have concerns about, and you can satisfy that with the joint life opportunity. It's easy to apply for, to get it approved. The simplified application that we have gone over is very significant. Yes and no questions. The joint life offers premium savings up to 90% over conventional policies in the field. We have the issue ages of 45 to 80. And the face amounts between $3,500 and $30,000. Lump sum or paid out over a period determined by the applicant. We are licensed in more states than the 38, but the policy is approved in the 38 states. That was our TV. It just fell in. No, I'm just. Actually, it was a plane that flew over and dropped in a load of applications, and it missed the new business department. Anyway, it's approved in 38 states. We think we have excellent rates. Persistency is excellent, and of course, we get out to you weekly commissions. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know it's an awful lot of high-level information. We have, for example, available to you, which you'll be able to get from our agent portal site, what is known as the revised, and I think Heather's popping it up here so you see what it looks like. We have this revised survivor field underwriting guideline, which is has been condensed of the specific points, changes, and some of the specific issues that you need to be aware of as an agent. LifeShield has really built this business over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think has an appetite to extend its efforts in creating new premium. And when you call here, you get an answer. I have to say to you, I'd like anybody that's out there that I can help once you get to the field. If there's anything we can answer, questions you might have, if no one's available, you can always call me. My number is 405-642-0000. So one more after that, and one more 0. And that's my cell phone. If there's a lady in attendance, she calls, my wife gets a little upset from time to time and said, Betty called from Tampa and wanted to know what you were doing and needed to ask you a question. But in sincerity, I'm more than happy to do anything I can do to help you. And I know that you'll be very successful in AmeriLife, and look forward to the opportunity to working with you. So, David, I'll throw that. Still have 15 minutes. I know Robert's on there to talk about.
Yeah. Fantastic. Robert, just as a FYI, we're getting a little bit of noise out of your microphone. If it's clipped to your lapel, that may be what's going on. But in the meantime, I do want to mention that, for those on attendance, the marketers in this office have a really good feel for this product and are a great resource for you to reach out to in the event that you have some questions or want an application or are curious about writing that first app. By all means, give us a call and ask your marketer any questions you've got, and they'll be happy to help you, especially when you start asking them about the incentive to work with the product. Again, we're going to go into just a little bit more detail in a few minutes on that, so stay with us. Right now, I do want to introduce Robert Patterson. He is an agent out in the field, so he's just like all of you, and he's using the LifeShield product very successfully. What we tried to do was kind of find a producer out there who is having great success and ask him, what is it? What is it about your business that provides you an opportunity to be so successful with this product? So we're going to take some time and ask him some questions and find out. So Robert, are you out there?
Yes, sir.
Great. So Robert, when we spoke the other day, you told me that you've been in the business a while. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the scope of your business?
Well, I've been in the business now for 30 years. Over the last, since the mid-90s, I've just really focused on final expense for the majority of my business. That's what most of our agents focus on.
Yeah, well, you guys do, quite a bit of business, and we've seen a lot of, new apps coming in from LifeShield. So I thought it'd be appropriate to get you on the webinar and sort of ask some questions. So you had mentioned, I think, quite a bit of your business is actually coming in as a final expense type production.
Correct, because it makes it so simple. I mean, I was just looking at my LifeShield report before this webinar. One of my agents sent in a case of business yesterday, and it's already issued.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's like the next day, the 23rd, if today's the 24th, that's simple. If you got a clean app, I've never had any problems getting anything issued. If I do have a question, I call the home office. Somebody's given me an answer right now. They're not saying, let me call you back in 3 or 4 days. I've gotten an answer every time I've called, and sometimes I have, questions that you would know after you've been with the company for, a few months. But, when I was brand new, I had a lot of questions, and nobody got tired of me.
There's one thing that's for sure I've always noticed in this business is that anytime you're working with a carrier and you're writing an app for the first time or the second time or even the third time in some cases, there's some adjustment and some learning process involved in making that transition from the carrier and the carrier you're just picking up that might have a real good opportunity to fit into your business. Every now and then there's a little bit of learning process that you've got to do in order to sort of blend your approach at how you sell and the company and how they do business. And so, thank you for going through the learning process to get there. So, but you're right, and they do a great job. When you call LifeShield, there's a real person that answers the phone, and they, hang up the phone and go get you the answers if they don't have them right there on the spot. So I love that about LifeShield.
It makes it real simple to work with.
Tell me about your lead, program and what you do, and give us a little bit of understanding, what you're doing there that helps you to be successful.
Okay, we use, we use multiple sources of lead programs. We have direct mail. Some of our most popular is the telephonic leads. We have a great system, but when we get the leads, I have some agents that love calling and setting up appointments. I got some agents that just like showing up at the door, the way we were trained 30 years ago. And it makes it so simple. When you show up, you have a reason for being there or a reason for calling them. You'll always have some type of excuse, oh, I was doing this or that. But for the most part, people know why you're there, and they want to talk about life insurance, final expense, something to take care of their burial. Some of the areas that we work in are not the most fluent areas of the state. We've all been there, and premium dollar when you're dealing with seniors is always extremely important. That's what I love about LifeShield, is because their premiums are roughly about, if you go with if they cannot afford one on a policy on each one of them, you can go with the joint program and at least get the first one taken care of and come back later and sign up the second one, after the first person passes away. That is one of the ways that we use it on top of the Social Security replacement. But I've been in houses where people says, I can't afford $100 a month for both of us, so we're going to go without. It's like, well, let me show you this, And they like it because it's about 70% of the premium roughly, and you got both of them taken care of upon the first death. That makes it an ideal tool that you're still walking away with a sale based off their qualifications, of course.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. That sort of situation happens out there in the field day in and day out, time and time again. And being able to have, again, the flexibility to step into the type of sale that can be made in that house certainly provides an agent a real asset in the briefcase, if you will. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer writing, each one of them an individual policy. I mean, that's the ideal situation. but we don't always walk in the ideal situation every house we go to.
There's no doubt in my mind. So, how about, the opportunity to, tell me about your agents knocking on the door. Are they using the sales approach for final expense, or are they talking about income replacement?
We use the final expense. That's what the the telemarketing leads are about, and that's what the direct mail is about. But when we get to the door, I just tell them, it's like, hey, Dave, you spoke with Joanne in my office yesterday or the day before requesting information about final expense life insurance. I have your information. I don't have a problem getting in the door most of the time. Like I said, you're always going to have somebody that says no, or they were wasting their time or whatever. But for the most part, I'm getting in the house.
Yeah, you can also, if they say no, you can kind of follow up with the question that says, have you considered, what you might do in the event that one of you pass away? Would your Social Security, the loss of the Social Security income, would that affect your household? Or maybe just jump over to a script that might, allow something else to think about. So, with that being said, I think that probably we're going to run out of time. If we don't pop over to the questions, we're gonna run a little bit long. So I'd like to reach out to Kaylee to see if she has any questions for the panel.
I do have one question. What are some prospecting ideas or methods that have worked well in the past with other agents?
David, I certainly you should address that, but I'd like to make a comment after you have. David Paul?
Yeah, I see a lot of agents actually kind of using that unique approach to replacing income. And I think, from time to time, changing the approach that you take is important. And that way your responses are, sort of, people see the same sort of, mailers all the time. And if they do, they begin to sort of fall on deaf ears, if you will. But, when you can change it up or have a variety, you then, sometimes can either have somebody's attention that overlooked it before, or, grab somebody's attention that had never considered it to this point. So they've never been approached by that kind of mailer. So it's always important to vary your mailers and keep people interested. So that's the comment I might have.
If I could just add one to the question was asked, part of our best prospecting base are policyholders that we have. I don't see where, I think this would be a very good opportunity if we have sold them some form of coverage, i.e. Medicare Supplement or a hospital policy or a cancer policy or whatever else it may be. That is a very fertile field for you to return because you've established a relationship with them and have the opportunity to say, oh, gee, I came across something new here, and know that you're of the age where Social Security and running out may be a concern for you. And is that a concern for you? Then the opportunity to come by and discuss that.
Yeah, and let's face it, the title of the webinar series is Life After AEP. So the intent is to sort of provide you a cross-marketing opportunity to that book of business of the people that you've just recently met. And a lot of times at this time of year, they're just now getting their policies and having an opportunity to use them for the first time. It's a great way to get back in front of them and ask, is everything working out okay for you? Is this, did you get your coverage card? All that sort of things. And then, ask to maybe stop by and chat over a cup of coffee. It's a great way to get back in the household and reintroduce a life insurance solution to those clients. I did a stint with State Farm years ago that taught me some very important lessons, and one of them was that they had done a study on all of their policyholders, and what they found was that the people who held 3 or more policies with them were 95% more likely to ask the State Farm agent for advice on any other policy that they might have or need. So they would come to the State Farm agent first before asking anybody else. So if that's not a persistency builder, I don't know what is. Adding on policies into a household, every policy you add on, every bit of coverage that you enhance that relationship with kind of brings you closer and closer to that spot where they only count on you for all advice. And so that's something to bear in mind while you're out there, working your client base. It's a great way to keep those relationships really close. And so, Kaylee, did you have any more questions? So let's talk a little bit about the incentive to get out and write some business. And so we do these webinars to make sure you guys are well prepared and educated and that you have the information you need to go out and maybe experiment with a carrier you hadn't tried yet. So if you have not tried LifeShield, if you have, great, keep writing, and we hope you do so. But if you haven't, I challenge you to get out and write a piece of business. Give the carrier a try. You spent the last hour learning, so let's do what it takes to sort of go through that challenge of learning the new process. Don't be afraid. Just jump in. We're here to help you. Your marketer is here to help you. So let us do that, and let's give it a shot. Run some quotes. Think of somebody in your book of business that is a perfect fit for LifeShield. I'm sure you probably have somebody in mind already. Call your marketer, email your marketer, tell them you need an application, an agent guide, and a client brochure. We'll send it out to you and make sure that you have everything that you need to get that first app written. So again, I challenge you to get out there and write. But when you do, LifeShield has, again, thrown in $1,500 for agents that go from this web presentation or this webinar out to the field and write a piece of business. The incentive is essentially $50 per app for agents that are already licensed until the pool of money is gone, or for an agent newly contracted, that first piece of business is going to pay $100 to that agent, and then $50 for each additional application that comes in thereafter until the money is gone. So we have that pool of money here for you, and we're eager to give it to you. So please get out and write a piece of business. Steve, David, Robert, anybody have any more comments that they'd like to throw in before we let the attendees go?
From my perspective, just thank you all very much. Thank you for taking time to listen to our story, and we look forward to working with you. And thank you, David, Paul, and everyone at AmeriLife for the opportunity to work with you.
You got it. Thanks for making the presentation for us today, Steve. Robert, you got anything to add?
Like I said, I think once somebody writes their first case, first 5 cases, they're going to realize how simple this product is, and the paperwork and getting it submitted and getting it issued, and they're really going to grow from there after learning the simplicity of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Robert. Thank you so much for that. So everybody, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for attending the webinar today. We appreciate you being on. We've got a continuation of our webinar series next week, Wednesday and Thursday. We've also got Mutual of Omaha tomorrow. They're going to do a presentation on some of their products. So hopefully we'll see you again on the webinar tomorrow. Thanks so much again for joining us, and we'll let you get back to your busy day. Don't forget, life is good. Sell it.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for attending.
Thank you.